Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
I'm your host today, Chris Santamassimo, and I'm really excited to introduce the podcast audience to Lane Hickey-Wiggins. Lane is the president and CEO of DPrint down in Lakeland, Florida. So welcome to the podcast, Lane.
And thank you for having me.
So just by way of background, Lane is going to talk about DPrint, which has a rich family history that goes all the way back to 1939. I don't want to spoil your thunder, but great history. And I love what Lane is doing in terms of supporting the printing industry through Women in Print, as well as her work with the Printing United Alliance. So Lane, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't we talk about DPrint and talk about that rich family history that I mentioned?
Okay, so I am a third generation CEO. We started back in 1939 as Douglas Signs. My grandfather came on board somewhere in between 1939 and 1964. I don't have the exact year. And he incorporated the company as Douglas Screen Printers in 1964. And then in 1997, my mother, Lisa Kaiser Hickey, took over the company. And in 2012, I took over. So during the period of her taking over and me taking over, we rebranded as DPrint. So while we still operate as Douglas Screen Printers, we go by DPrint to be a little more modern and with the times. But we are definitely still deeply entrenched within screen printing. And while we have incorporated wide format digital printing into our plant, I would say we still lean pretty heavily towards screen printing, probably about 60% screen printing, 40% digital, possibly even more screen printing than that, but that's a good guess.
So was your grandfather, was he primarily a sign printer back in the early days?
Yeah, I would say that yeah, they manufactured signs by hands, and it was very much like an art form and a craft. And as you know, over the years, signs have obviously evolved to be a much more complex thing. And now there's electrics involved, or electrical, I should say, and things like that. So the split, I think, was pretty natural between him and Leroy Douglas because Leroy went and created a sign company while we kept on the label side of things. So while we still do signage, we don't do, electrical signage or things like that. So it's a different world. I think back in the 30s through the 60s, like I mentioned, it was just a different craft. It was a different world than it is today.
For sure. And the technology is amazing. And I think what's also interesting about it is that the technology has made things so much more precise and computerized, et cetera, but there still is an art form to it.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. I'm not necessarily sad that we're not involved with the technology aspect of digital signage and things like that. But yes, I feel at the end of the day, there is definitely still creativity required in everything we do as a printing company.
We'll talk about some of the success stories with your clients. I mean, you're serving kind of an interesting mix of clients where you go from government to kids tag art all the way into propane gas and corporate branding. So talk a little bit about some of the specifics about what you do and some of the solutions that you're providing your customers.
Okay, so yes, we do have a wide array of customers, and we have very reliable customers, and they come back all the time, and we are incredibly blessed with the type of customers that we have. We offer, so I would say one pillar of our business is what we call ready ship, or essentially finished goods, where we can do fulfillment, and a lot of that product is based around hazardous transportation. So a lot of those customers are ordering things that, when they're transporting liquefied petroleum gas, they have to identify that in whatever tanker they're using, right? So we built a catalog around things such as that because we knew there was a market for it, and it has served us very well. It's about a third of our business every year. You mentioned the government, so that relationship has been also longstanding. In fact, we were, not me personally, but Lisa, who is my mother, as I mentioned, and was running the company prior to me, actually helped draft the bones of a program contract for NASA for their mission decals. And it is actually a contract that we still hold today. So I believe it was over 30 years ago, maybe even 40 at this point. It's been a while that this contract has been in existence. So that's been one of the more, I think, beneficial sides of working with the government, is that they truly do rely on subject matter experts, if you will. And so while we're certainly not the only printing company they reach out to for, expertise or questions or whatever, they do ask us, and they do want our feedback, because at the end of the day, they want to serve their customer as well as they possibly can. So it's been a really fruitful relationship, and like I said, we've been doing it for over 30 years, and that's probably another third of our business. And then the last bit of our business is just nuanced individual customers. So it could be anything from, the person that orders our stock or ready ship items that has hazardous materials they're transporting. Well, maybe they want to indicate their company, right? Maybe they want a label that shows who they are and shows that this is their propane tank, or whatever the case may be. And we have local customers who want to do vehicle wraps, and I mean, we're really a shop that doesn't say no. Sometimes it doesn't serve us to not say no. But we really like taking care of our customers, and we really like finding solutions for our customers. And I think it's really served us well. And it's really been one of the things that's helped keep us relevant and keep us alive, because we don't back away from challenges ever.
Yeah, and some of the environments that you're printing decals and labels for are quite challenging. You talk about, tags on a vehicle, for example, that see weather every single day. That's a big challenge to be able to print decals that are going to last, and signage that'll last in the long term.
Yes, especially living in Florida. But I didn't even touch on Kids Tag Art, which is actually a very near and dear project. We are a founding member of what is called Polk County Kids Tag Art, and it started with our tax collector, Joe Tedder, in Polk County. Goodness, it's probably been 11 or 12 years, maybe even more at this point. But it started with him, and then he took it to the Florida Tax Collectors Association and said, hey, I think y'all should do this in your individual counties. So now we're up to a handful of counties that we produce these tags for, and it's not in every single county, but the beauty of the program is that it gives back to the arts program for public schools. And I'm sure I don't have to mention it, but schools struggle with their budgets and their constraints, and one of the first things that gets hit is the arts program. And candidly, without the arts, you don't have creativity, right? So what I do and what this company does is a very creative process, and without having that fundamental knowledge in school, I mean, that's a big deal, right? So it's a passion project of ours, and we certainly don't do it for the money, because we actually offer a discounted rate so that even more goes back to the schools. But it's important, and I think that we all should do our part in how we can give back. But back to what you said about the durability piece, we try to find the materials that are going to be the best for the situation, and we do our best to caution customers and let them know, hey, like, you're in Florida, so it's only going to last so long. And surprisingly, that doesn't usually come back as a problem. In fact, we've had customers come back years later and say, hey, can you remove the wrap? And we're all over here internally rolling our eyes, because none of us want to actually remove a wrap that's 5-7 years old. But we're excited that their vehicle graphics are lasting for them, and that they're happy enough that they come back and say, hey, I want to do this again with y'all.
Oh, that's terrific. And I love the fact that it's a passion project for you, somebody that came up really as an art student before you got involved in the business.
I did, but I have to clarify, I was an art history major, so
Uh,
I can appreciate art and I do like to paint. The level of talent is something that I will not even pretend I have, but that's okay. I certainly appreciate art, and I did go to an artistic school. I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, and so some of the mandatory classes were, drawing and things like that. So I thought they were painful at the time, but I passed. I got great grades. I graduated with honors, so I can't complain.
well, you put it to good use in an industry that really is a combination of artistic pursuits and technology at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I didn't see when I graduated from there how it was all going to come together, because I distinctly recall thinking to myself when my mother approached me and said, what do you think about coming back into business and doing this? And I questioned, how does art history fit into all of this? But I think you're right. I think that there's a lot of historical tribal knowledge in this industry. And although, no, you can't necessarily compare 15th, 16th, 17th century artwork with what we're doing now. I mean, to some degree, you can connect the dots, right? It had to start somewhere. So,
Yeah, and then, the ability to appreciate the appearance of something that your team has created, or to have an appreciation for the issues about color consistency. And I mean, I could rattle on for an hour, but those are the kind of things that I think your mind gets trained about and translates directly into what you do at DPrint.
yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I had a color theory class, so it does directly correlate.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Uh, so, what are some of the things that are exciting to talk about when it comes to the Women in Print group? That just by way of background, that I guess you'd say that's a subgroup within the Printing United Alliance, but doing some real good work in terms of promoting women in an industry that's really a male dominated one.
Yeah, so that is also a group that I am a founding member of. Back when, I believe when we were still SGIA and Marcy Kinter was still with SGIA, she's since retired. She approached me and several of the women and said, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. What do you think? And me being the type of person I am, raised by a very strong female figure, I was all in. I was all on board. So I've been involved since the beginning, and I've put a lot of hard work into the group, as have the other women that are in the group. It's certainly a step in the right direction, especially because we are in a male dominated industry. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, I think it brings forth a set of unique challenges, and that honestly sometimes it's intimidating and you don't really know which way to go or who to talk to or who you can trust, or I mean things like that where you kind of take it for granted. It becomes a totally different playing field. So what I love about this group is that it's a way for women to connect, and it's a way for women to help elevate each other and to even provide mentorship to those that are coming into the industry and maybe wondering, okay, well, what's next for me? It's also a way for us to encourage and educate, and anyone coming out of college, like if you're looking at this industry and you're worried about where you fit in and what you can do, there's a place for everyone, male or female. That's set aside. So I think it's a great way for connection, networking, and mentorship, and I mean honestly advocacy of women. Like how do we all fit in? How do we all fit in together? Where can we go? What's next? And especially if you're really growth oriented, like you want to get to the top somehow. Okay, well let's figure out how to do that for you. Like let's take you there.
So, what are the some of the specific initiatives that you've developed within the Women in Print group, other than getting together as a group and some and sharing, which is natural, and that's got a lot of value. Are there some initiatives that are really helping women, either promote themselves or find their way through the industry?
Yeah, so I think as I mentioned, attracting, advancing, and advocating for women in the printing industry is really important, which I touched on. But I think it's also about education, right? So educating the broader printing industry on, business and societal benefits of increased diversity, equity, and inclusion, helping the industry understand that gender-based gaps do exist. So it's not just about women, it's also about how do we educate and how do we inform others on what's going on. We also recently rolled out a membership program, or I shouldn't say program, but membership platform. So that was announced at the recent Printing United Expo. So now you can sign up and you can become a member, and you can, see the newsletter, see what other women in the industry are doing, see what other things are happening. And so it's become this platform for both education and connection. So while the connection piece is really important, I think, for the women, the education piece is important for the entire printing industry.
Yeah, and your presence is really accentuating, as you say, other people in the industry to be mindful of the issues that are important to your group.
Yes. And I think that is something that is not only true to the printing industry. So I think that's honestly a nationwide thing. I would venture to say worldwide thing. But we're doing what we can for the printing industry, because that's where we are, and that's where we live, and that's where we, work daily. So for us, we're taking the initiative to do the small things that we can to make change in the industry, and to, as I mentioned, educate and help advocate.
Terrific. Well, Lane, this has been a nice introduction to DPrint, your rich family history, and all the good things you're doing for the Printing United Alliance and Women in Print. So thanks so much for the chance to get to know you a little bit today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Where can folks contact you and learn more about DPrint, as well as get in contact with you specifically?
So they are welcome to go to our website, which is mydprint.com. They are also welcome to check me out on LinkedIn. I use my LinkedIn platform primarily to connect with folks in the printing industry space, and in the women in print space. And then I believe on my LinkedIn, all of my personal information is tied in there. So happy to have a conversation with anyone who wants to.
Fantastic. Well, just to wrap it up for today, this has been Lane Hickey-Wiggins, who's the president and CEO of DPrint in Lakeland, Florida. So thanks again, Lane, for a great discussion. And this has been Chris Santomassimo, host of the Think Factory podcast. And we'll see you next time.